Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please take your seats. A reminder to kindly keep mobile phones switched off or in the silent mode. On behalf of Shine.com, India's leading career portal from Hindustan Times, we welcome you to the 15th Hindustan Times Shine HR Conclave, the Mumbai chapter, based on the theme of diversity as business strategy. Globally, diversity in the workplace has become a politically correct cause to espouse. However, political correctness should not be confused with sincerity of action. It is the nature of a company's approach to diversity that will determine the outcome. Diversity promotes creativity, and heterogeneous groups have been shown to produce better solutions to problems and a higher level of critical analysis. This can be a vital asset at a time when organizations are undergoing tremendous change and self-examination to find new and more effective ways to operate. The question for corporate India, however, is, are organizations really looking at the diversity agenda as a means of business profitability, or does diversity remain more as part of a company's CSR initiative? Today's business leader, therefore, has many questions to answer, and among them are questions like, is HR hiring just to meet its requisite diversity portfolio, or does its role end with the hire? Or is HR proactively working to create an environment that allows very different people be who they are, even while maximizing their talent in order to support high performance? The 15th Hindustan Times Shine HR Conclave Mumbai chapter takes up discussing some of these incisive questions with CEOs, business leaders, and HR heads debating on diversity as business strategy. Before I invite the participants of the first panel, I'd like to invite Dr. Marco Saravan, who's the chairperson of Regenesis Business School and director of Regenesis Foundation, to really set the stage today. Marco has been an entrepreneur, an academic, a monk, and a development worker. As an entrepreneur, he started Regenesis Business School, a Southampton-based private higher education institution that has touched the lives of over 100,000 people who've been educated by the institution over the last 16 years. Croatian-born Marco came to South Africa in 1991 as a monk, following the spiritual traditions of yoga and meditation, and he initiated and managed various community development projects and job creation projects in the Orange Farm township south of Johannesburg. He has over 15 years of experience in human resource management, leadership development, education, and training, and he teaches human resource management on an MBA level and delivers talks and presentations locally and also internationally. He's authored and published the book, Secrets of Success, and I'd like to invite Dr. Saravan to please make the opening remarks.
Thank you very much. I hope you will understand my accent. My accent comes from Croatia and doesn't want to go away after speaking English for about 22 years. For the last 22 years, I lived in South Africa. And I was told, in preparation for this event tonight, I was told I should introduce Regenesis and I should talk about programs we are doing and our center which we opened recently in India. But I'm not good in marketing and sales, so I've decided not really to talk about Regenesis. And I'm sure you would like to hear more interesting things. So if you would like to know more about Regenesis, we have a stand outside, and there'll be people who can help you. You can pick up some prospectus and brochures. But basically, we offer online and contact learning programs and executive education, also international education, where people from India come and study in South Africa. Okay. I have a very short period of time to talk to you, to address you. I was told only about 5–10 minutes. We're already running late. Okay, so I'll try to be very short. I think common reason for all of us for coming together tonight is really to understand about people, how to manage people better. You all are HR professionals, and we all are trying to understand that the mystery. I like to use the word the mystery of human mind. You know, HR profession is a big profession, and so many books have been written, and so much research has been done. Yet, managing people remains a great mystery. And there's no model we can pick up and internalize and pass exam and say, well, I'm good HR manager, or I'm good leader, and I'm good with people. So what I would like really to do with you tonight to share my own experiences, and I would like to extract 3 key lessons I learned in my own life in terms of HR management, in terms of managing people, really, including diversity and leadership. And I will just use 3 words tonight from three successful stories I had in my life of building international business school just from an idea, from nothing to 100 crores. And the second business I did run successfully was investment business again, starting it from nothing, from just an idea to, again, 100 million crores in 5 years. And third business, community development project of building school, clinic, and various job creation projects, again, from nothing, just from an idea to 100 million crores. Now, when I say from nothing, means really from nothing. So when I was involved in development, I was a monk. I had nothing really, except I used to sleep on the floor, didn't have food, didn't have money, nothing, you know. Somehow, but I managed to build this successful project, you know. Okay. What I learned as a monk was that power is inside of us. That each of us, each human being has the most amazing potential. Each of us has a genius. There's a genius in each of us. There's a divinity. There's a greatness. And to succeed in life, we need to use that power inside of us to manifest success outside. And most people think success is an external thing, you know, and we need to have money or degrees from Ivy League universities or rich parents or win lottery. And I always say, no, you don't need any of these things. You already have everything you need. It's inside of you. You have everything you need to succeed within you. Now, second thing I learned is, in order to become successful, we need to think big. I learned as a monk again what we think we become. If we think small, we become small. If we think big, we become big. If we think mediocre, we become mediocre. Okay. So it's so important to have a big dream, because everything in this world, anything successful, anything big, started with an idea, started with a dream in someone's head. So we all need to push ourselves and to think big and to dream big, because our future doesn't really depend on what we are now and where we are now, how big or small we are. Our future depends really how big we dream. Those of you who dream small will become small. Those of you who dream big will become big. Those of you who have mediocre dreams or don't have any dreams, you know, will become probably mediocre, you know. Okay. That's so important, because everything starts with an idea, with dream. Once we have the dream, we just need to do simple things. We need to work hard. We need to persevere. We need to use power within us. We just have to have an attitude of not giving up, taking no for an answer, not accepting failure. And if you have that attitude, eventually we'll reach to our dream and we'll achieve our goals. Third thing I want to talk to you is about love. Okay, so 3 things: dream, power, and love. And if you can master these 3 things, we'll be great leaders, we'll be great HR managers, and we'll be able to awaken this human potential. And love is really very simple, you know. It's about caring for our staff, for people around us. It's about respecting them. It's about recognizing divinity in each of them. Can you imagine a situation where we could look at every human being around us, every team member in our organization, and recognize divinity recognize greatness, recognize talent, recognize power in that human being. And we wouldn't just dismiss them and say, well, this person is not good performer, this person is mediocre, this person is lazy, this person is stupid, you know. So if you can recognize greatness in divinity, if you can treat them with amazing respect, with talent, with care and love, then we could awaken that potential in them. Because respect and love helps people to express and grow. It helps people to express their innovation and creativity. Because each of us has amazing potential that can really change the world. Each of us, there's a divinity in each of us. So our role as HR managers is really to unleash that potential. And we have to be role models and examples, you know. Can you imagine if we would treat each customer with love and respect? The same way, if you could invoke that same feeling when we are in love with our partners, you know. If I can ask you, all of you, to think when you were in love, if you are still, or when you were in love maybe a few years ago, or 10, 15, 20 years ago, last time, you know, you operated on a different level completely. You were flying, you were giving, you didn't count what you do, you were spoiling, you were giving unconditionally, nothing was impossible, you're running extra miles, you were sacrificing, you didn't look at time, you were working out of love and passion, and it was such a beautiful world. Can you imagine if we can invoke that love at our workplace? We go to work, you know, we can't wait when we will get there, you know, to do all these great things, touch human lives, and to empower people and to change the world and all of this, you know. Rather than going to work and looking at time, you know, when it's time to go home, and when's the next salary, and rest, you know. Okay. So, just to repeat again, I know my time is up already. I know it's difficult to internalize some of this concept, but they are very simple, and success, I believe, is very simple, you know. We need to dream big, we need to think big, we need to conquer our own enemies, we need to conquer our own fears. What is blocking our potential is our fear, our self-limiting beliefs. We believe we are not good enough, we believe we don't deserve to have successful relationships, we believe we don't deserve to be rich and powerful, and to get our MBAs, and to be healthy physically and beautiful, and to win competitions and all of this, you know. It's all self-limiting beliefs. So enemy is inside, and we have to change the way we think. Okay. Only when we change ourselves, then we can change people around us. Only when we are happy, when we awaken our own potential, we can start awakening potential of people around us, and we can create the ripple effect, you know. But that change starts here. Starts with the big dream, an idea, and the way we think. And the next is power is inside of us. Again, I'm repeating. Each of us has this power, you know, and we must accept that power is within us, you know. And we don't need to do any funny things. We just need to be who we are. We need to be authentic, you know, and special. We must remember that we are so special. There are 7 billion people in this world, and only one of each of you. There's no copy of you. That means it's really very special, very unique. It's an amazing thing. Special means each of us has a unique purpose on this planet Earth, to do something great for this world, to live it better. We are not born just to live mediocre lives and to die, and that no one remembers about us. We are born to do great things, to live the world better for our children and for our future generations, you know. And each of us has potential to do this, you know. And each of us must take responsibility to work on improving ourselves and to touch people around us and to create ripple effects, you know, families and organizations and country and the world. And the last thing is really, just again, simple love. We need to choose to love. We need to learn forgiveness. We need to learn to give. What's an amazing thing, you know, if you look at successful people and unsuccessful people, 10% of people in this world are successful, 90% are unsuccessful. 10% are leaders, 90% followers. 10% of people control 90% of wealth. And what's interesting is these 10% of people are people who give unconditionally. People who get promoted in organizations, you know, as HR people, you all know, are those people who give unconditionally, who run extra miles, who do extra things when no one is looking at their back. And they get promoted, they get opportunities because they open up. They open up for opportunities and growth and success. And people who are takers, so there are two categories of people, givers and takers. Takers are people who always contract, they always complain about their managers and their bosses, their company, their government, and the whole world, you know. They always want to take, they want more money, they want performance bonds, they want this and that and that, you know. And they drain energy, they contract themselves, and they don't open up for themselves for opportunities, and they don't become successful in life, you know. So we need to learn to give. And only when we give ourselves completely, we get everything in life. That's what I've learned. As a monk, I gave my life completely to the world, you know, and I got everything, you know. In the relationship, you know, if you want to really have amazing relationship, you need to give yourself completely to the relationship, you know. Don't count, you know. Give unconditionally, you receive abundantly. At work also, give yourself completely to your company, to the things you do, and amazing things will come, you know. Excellence, passion, quality, money, success. It's going to be amazing experience, you know. You'll be operating on a completely different level of energy, but everything is possible, and everything is like happiness and success and excitement, you know. Yeah, okay. So my message, last message to you is, I know time is up, you know. So live fully, you know, work on awakening your own potential, touch, you know, other people, you know. You know, we all have this amazing power to really make the world a better place to live in, you know. I always say we must sleep less, you know, and do more things. We must give more and live life fully. We must not live in fear. We must confront and conquer our own fears. And I did all types in my own life, all types of things to conquer my own fears, you know. Jumped from an airplane and became a monk and climbed Kilimanjaro and started businesses and scuba dived and wrote a book, did my PhD. Each of these things was conquering my own fears and pushing my own boundaries of comfort and going into unknown. Only when we conquer fear, when we push our own boundaries, then we can awaken our own potential and realize our own power, you know. But it requires really walking through fear and confronting it, and really not being scared of ultimately death. And ultimately, if we can conquer fear of death, fear of dying, then we can get life completely, and we can experience freedom and happiness ultimately. Okay, I know time is up, you know. I wish you good luck on your journey as HR professional, as a managers. I want to thank Hindustan Times for organizing this event, you know. I believe we're also lucky, and I'm so grateful, you know, to be given this opportunity to talk to you. You know, we all have a common thing, you know, and common thing is really about human development and making the world a better place to live in. Each of you has amazing power, responsibility, impact on lives of hundreds and thousands, and some of you tens of thousands of people, you know. And it's a big responsibility on your shoulders, you know. So I wish you good luck, you know. And God bless all of you. Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Saravan. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to now invite our panelists to please join me up on stage. And as they come up, I will introduce each of them to you. For our panel of CEOs, we have joining me on stage, Ms. Hema Ravichander, strategic HR advisor with over 30 years of industry experience. She's currently an independent consultant to several Indian and multinational corporations, and also a member of the board of directors of several companies. Until 2005, she was the senior vice president and global head of HR for Infosys Technologies, and designed and drove the HR agenda for Infosys globally as it scaled up from 250 employees in 1992 to 40,000 employees in 2005. She has deep HR expertise and experience in building an HR organization, designing capabilities and processes, and in mentoring client HR teams globally. As part of her ISR initiatives, she runs a pro bono initiative for senior professionals called Expertise, and you can find it at www.seniorexperts.org under the aegis of the HR Trust that connects them with jobs, with volunteering and mentoring opportunities. Mr. Krishna Kumar, on my extreme left, the MD and CEO of Philips Electronics India, was earlier president and head of Philips Healthcare business in India. Joining Philips in 2010, his experience spans across India, the USA, Japan and China in leadership positions at Coopers and Lybrand Consulting and HSBC. Mr. Pratyush Kumar is the president Boeing India and vice president Boeing International. Based in New Delhi, Mr. Kumar is Boeing's senior most in-country leader responsible for development and execution of the company's strategy in India. He aligns business priorities, expands Boeing's footprint, develops customer relationships, and builds partnerships with industry and government stakeholders in the region. Before joining Boeing in 2012, Mr. Kumar was the president and CEO of GE Transportation South Asia. To steer our discussion, we have the editor of Mint, R. Sukumar. It's all yours now, Sukumar.
Thanks, Rini. You can hear us, right? Okay. We are here to talk about diversity. And diversity is, unfortunately, one of those things that all of us pay a lot of lip service to. Right? Yeah. Any organization, and you know, the organizations that Hema worked for, the organizations that Krishna and Pratyush work for, the newsroom that I work for, all of us would like to think that we are diverse, right? We like to think of ourselves as progressive, equal opportunity employers. And that's not really the case, right? And I think it's not really the case simply because in many cases, and I'm going to be deliberately provocative, hoping that someone will counter this. And it's not that way simply because we are all meritocratic organizations in some way, right? So we look for the best talent and we go out and pick them. And the point was driven very forcefully to me when I attended a lecture in Delhi a couple of years ago. It was by this gentleman called Robin Jeffrey, and he was speaking about diversity in Indian newsrooms. Now, diversity is a big hot topic in the US. Right? And diversity in newsrooms is an extremely important topic there. In the US, of course, as you would guess, the primary focus of this is African Americans. Right? And research has shown that in the US, African Americans are underrepresented in the newsrooms. And Robin did a similar study in India a couple of years back. And he referenced a couple of earlier studies, very rarely quoted studies, because this is not the kind of thing we would like the world to know, that showed that the proportion of Dalits and scheduled castes in Indian newsrooms was completely insignificant, right? And it's probably insignificant because we are all well-meaning people. Like, I would never look at someone and try to guess his caste or something, so when I'm hiring, it's not even something I look at. But the fact is, after I heard Robin speak, I looked at the roster of people who work for me, and I realized that there was not one Dalit or scheduled caste among them. And you might ask, why is it important? But in the newsroom, I think it's extremely important, right? Because there is a certain perspective that these people bring. There is a certain inclusiveness that an organization can achieve that by bringing these people in. The same is true for Muslims, right? The number of Muslim journalists I have working for me is insignificant. I probably have one or two. Again, I don't look at them and say that you're a Hindu or you're a Muslim. I go out and hire the best possible talent. But increasingly, when you look at a cross-section of Indian companies, and I've looked at a lot of Indian companies, you will find a level of homogeneity in most of them, right? Things have changed. Things have changed from the days when, I used to be a cub reporter in Chennai covering a TVS group company, and you would find that everyone who works for the company is an Iyengar, or you used to go to meet someone in MRF, and you would find that even the guard who lets you in is a Syrian Christian, right? But right now, companies are going out there and trying to hire professionals. But because they believe in this meritocratic approach, my hypothesis is we end up with a certain degree of homogeneity. So my question to you is, do we need to change this? Is what I've said true? Do we need to change this? Do we need to move away from merely defining diversity in terms of gender, right? Because I think in many ways that's the low-hanging fruit. Like my newsroom, for instance, 52% of the employees are women. But that is really low-hanging fruit. It's only when you go into far more significant demographics that you realize how non-diverse you are. And does this mean companies need to go out and launch some sort of small affirmative action program within their own hiring policies to make sure that, that they are diverse enough. And so I'm going to ask Hema to speak, because Hema used to head Infosys, which is a company which was founded by 7 people, whom, as a India Today cover story by a former colleague of mine called Sumit Mitra in the early 2000s pointed out, it was founded by 7 people, all of whom were Brahmins, right?
From Jayanagar.
From a particular area, right? And it was a, for a long time, if you looked at software companies, most of the people who worked for software companies were Hindus. A lot of them were Brahmins. They were very, very non-diverse organizations. This is going to be a very frank discussion, okay? Like, some of you might not like the fact that I'm going to keep focusing on underprivileged classes, on caste and other things, but we are really going to get down to the nitty-gritties of diversity here. We are not going to look at gender. Gender is something we will look at, but like I said, gender is really low-hanging fruit. So it's going to be one of these intense discussions, or at least I hope it will be,
yeah.
right? So, Hema.
Thank you, Suku. Can you hear me? So, I think, if you look at US, and a lot of the diversity actions that came out of North America, a lot of it was driven by the legal compliance and the need to be seen affirmatively as diverse. I think in the Indian subcontinent and in our country, while initially, maybe in the 50s and 60s and maybe even in the 70s, in all our application blanks, we had this special column which said, SC/ST, please tick. I think as we moved into the 80s and the 90s, progressive companies consciously stepped back and said, we will never ask this. And to Suku's provocative question, now, when we are operating in an ecosystem which is essentially very strongly quota-based, some of these progressive sunrise industries are wondering whether they should take proactive affirmative steps before they are slapped with quotas. So given that context, and given the fact that we are not going to talk just about gender, I want to take it a step further and say that we shouldn't just talk also about only employees, but also about customer diversity, and in many cases, supplier diversity. When we talk about employee diversity, there are 3 dimensions to it. There is the internal dimension of the employee, things that you can't change, gender, age, sex, sexual orientation, etc. Then you have certain external dimensions of the employee, which are relative: parental status, marital status, your nationality, etc., etc. And finally, of course, the organizational dimensions, which can change. So diversity definitely has to be looked at holistically, even for an employee, beyond the internal to external and organization. Now, why diversity? And of course, one reason is, as we discussed, it's better to do things proactively than get slapped with the quotas and then do it. And I think organizations have already started, the public sector has always had this on their radar. But in many cases, it ended up being counterproductive because it led to political feather bedding. But sunrise industries, IT especially, has started consciously looking at it, even if they are not carrying the statistic immediately in the application blank. They're trying to pick this up in a more subtle way and then working on it. There are companies having specific training programs for people in these kind of communities and bringing more of them into the workforce. So that's one. Second, I think it's very important to reflect your customer base. Retail has learned this, and there are many examples in North America. But if you were serving a particular community, it's good to have people of that community serving. The automobile manufacturers have seen that, all of that. Third is really the war for talent. And if you want to capitalize on different markets, you better have different types of talent there, because otherwise you're running short and there's going to be a scarcity. And finally is this whole concept of the diversity predictivity theorem and the virtuous circle of productivity. Diversity predictivity because the ability of any group is seen to be the ability of the crowd plus the diversity in the crowd. And there are many examples and many interesting case studies which show, of course, that diverse groups of molecular biologists versus a similar profile, the molecular group, the diverse group solved problems much faster versus the others. And the virtuous circle of productivity, which is if you encourage diversity and encourage people to bring more of themselves into the workforce, they contribute more to the work and therefore they become much more productive. So both these are well-known theories, and for all of these reasons, I think we need to encourage. Now, what organizations are doing, what kind of steps are they taking, are they doing incremental, are they making significant moves, really depends on the organization and at the space where it is. And I think, there's no universalization you can do, but I think business drives the imperative, and if the business interest is not seen, it's not very much that you can do to push the agenda. But wise leaders see the business drive and then they embrace it.
Okay, Hema, I'm going to ask you to speak some more right now because I want to ask you a supplementary question, which is really, every time there is, we're all against quotas, right? I mean, enforced quotas by the government, right? I don't think the government should be getting into telling people who they should hire. But if you look at the way, because you mentioned that smarter companies were going to do this themselves before the government made them do it, every time there is talk of even a small reservation, and a few years back, the government said private sector jobs, it wanted to have some reservation for people from the scheduled caste. And the Confederation of Indian Industry, which is the biggest Indian lobby group, reacted very, very adversely to it, right? Saying, we are a meritocracy, you can't force us to go out and hire people. So I'm not quite sure that there are actually too many companies there who are willing to be as progressive as you say they will be. Right?
Yeah, and I think that's a worry, and it's also a little bit of a reaction to the past. So if you look at again the 60s and 70s, and if you look at the temples of modern India, so to say, the public sector, they all had this. What ended up happening many times was feather bedding. So people with vested interests, political constituencies, vote banks, etc., started getting a lot of this without merit being taken into consideration. I think as a reaction, when some of these sunrise industries, which had many more, open level playing field kind of thing, they went all the way back. And as I said, this column was there in application blanks way back in the 60s and 70s, consciously removed in the 90s and the 2000s. But I think it may have been a case of too little, and while one or two islands may be doing something, if the industry doesn't do it as a group, then one will have to be reactive and then fall party to norm.
Sure. Okay, Pratyush, you work for a US multinational, and like Hema said, rules and compliance meant that a lot of US companies had to move towards this very, very rapidly, and in many ways, I think they were pioneers as far as diversity was concerned, or building diversity, fostering diversity was concerned. How have you been able to translate those measures to India?
Right. I'll go back to the two dimensions of diversity that we talked about. One is doing good, which is about compliance, which is about inclusiveness. A lot of the affirmative actions and reservation we talked about falls in that category. So make sure that we have opportunities for people who didn't have opportunities previously and bring them up. The second piece is doing well, which is about, is diversity a competitive advantage? Is it a business strategy? So let me kind of spend a little bit of time talking about the second piece, which is doing well. And as Hema alluded to a couple of points. One is, first and foremost, it's all about numbers. Right? So if you look at gender diversity, we cannot leave out half the talent pool and hope to outcompete a competition. So it's strictly about numbers. That's just gender diversity. It's also about ethnic diversity. It's about really kind of war for talent that the Hema talked about. The second business proposition on this is about problem solving. It's about diagnostic thinking that comes from a diversity of perspective and views. You know, diversity is somewhat, as you mentioned, Suku, it's not a natural act. People tend to gravitate towards other people who look or think like themselves. So we tend to hire people who tend to work out like clones of yourself. So you have to actually go an extra mile and really kind of break that natural state of trying to hire people like you to become more diverse. And that is a very important business strategy. When you're looking at increasingly more complex world where the problem solving requires much more diverse perspectives, it is imperative. There has been many, many cases that we saw solving both technical problem and business problem where diverse group of people, outperformed more homogeneous people. I mean, this is established fact. And the third part, as Hema mentioned as well, is that as a business, you have to reflect your customer base. So if for a global company like Boeing is, if your employee base doesn't reflect that, you won't be able to serve your customers well. So from a business point of view, as a business strategy, diversity is a very important tool, and there's a lot of focus being put on based just for doing well perspective as opposed to just doing good. Now, doing good is an important factor also. We have to make sure that we kind of deliver on the commitments, compliance commitment, and inclusiveness commitment. But frankly, I think as a business perspective, that's very important to make sure that diversity is deployed in that front also.
Thanks, Prat. You made a very important point there, which is to say that it's not just compliance, right? There's actually a competitive reason why organizations need to be diverse. Krishna works for a European multinational, and Europe obviously believes that it's the fount of civilization and culture. So in many ways, I think European companies believe that they're far more culturally sensitive than US multinationals. How does it work at Philips, right? How diverse is your company globally? How diverse are you locally? Have you actually looked beyond mere gender diversity? And if so, what are you doing?
I have to add one element of describing the business imperative for Philips and the phase that Philips is in to set the context for, sure. How and why this is important. So Philips globally, while for very long it has been known as a consumer electronics company, and you think of a light bulb and television and so on, we've had that conversation before, is today a very different company from the company that it used to be several years ago. In that process of transformation has been three significant shifts that have happened at Philips, right? The first one is that we've migrated away from being a consumer electronics major, so much so that the name, which was Royal Philips Electronics Limited, is no longer Royal Philips Electronics. In India, we're Philips India, not Philips Electronics India, which we used to be. To morphing to being healthcare, followed by lighting, followed by consumer lifestyle business. So the composition and the mix of the business has changed. The second is within the businesses, within the clustering of the three businesses which aggregate up to being a health and well-being company, we've morphed into actually 28 different businesses that we actually manage under the umbrella of Philips. So we are not monolithic as a business composition that we are in as a company. The third dimension, which is important, is that we've morphed in terms of business models through which we operate, and are morphing as we speak in terms of business models, how we operate. So if you take a space like lighting or healthcare, for example, what used to be selling light bulbs and what used to be selling luminaires, which is basically these things that go around it, is migrating to systems and controls and moving to services and lighting services that we are providing. Same thing is happening in healthcare, where we used to sell MRI scanners, and we still do. And we are migrating from there to becoming a services-led company, where really what any customer is buying really from us is really data analytics and big data analytics behind it. So not to go too much into the detail, but suffice it to say that this is a company that has morphed a lot in terms of business models and the businesses that we are in simultaneously over the last 15 to 20 years as a company. So the first imperative that it has placed on us, really, therefore globally, and a lot of that plays out in India as well, is really that what got us here is not going to get us there. So easier said than done, but it's the whole truth at Philips. And there's a clear recognition that therefore the competencies that helped you win in the 70s is going to be very different from the competencies which are going to help us win in the next 10 years for us. So we are actively building out competencies as we speak, both in India as well as globally, which reflect that competencies that we need to win in the future, today. And you're seeing, therefore, diversity in action from a competency mix, and therefore the backgrounds of people and so on in action as we speak. Now, how does that reflect out in terms of, what Philips looks like internationally as well as in India? If you start with the apex body at Philips, it's called the Supervisory Board. We have about 10 people, at last count, from 7 different countries, right? We have, 3 women, 7 men, if you care about the gender diversity. Orit Gadesh, who used to be the partner at Bain, is on the supervisory board. We have Neelam Dhawan from India, who's on the supervisory board of Philips, and so on, right? If you take that down one level and you look at the executive committee that Philips has, again, we have people from 5 different countries in a 9-member executive committee. And gender diversity. So the CEO of our healthcare business is Deborah DeSanso, who's an American and a woman, if you care to know, and so on, right? And that kind of tends to play down across countries and businesses and markets, because it's imperative for us to really be able to do that. That's one. Now, what does that translate to in terms of so we don't want to diversify for the sake of it. There are 2 particular areas of focus for me from an India standpoint. So we are 9,500 people in India. We're about a $1.2 billion company in India, right? And we have, of course, big ambitions to win in a number of the areas that we're making strategic choices about. So the 2 important aspects of diversity for us from building out our future of Philips in India is really for us, one, to build out a diversity of competency mix to give you one example, for example, a sales guy, if you want to start at the commercial end. So we're about 4,500 in manufacturing, 3,000 in R&D, and 2,000 in commercial in India, right? Give or take a few. But starting from a sales guy or define guy gender neutral, a box seller of the past needs to become a solution seller or a service provider in the future, for example. So it needs a diversity of skill set to be able to drive that change and make it happen. You need to role model it through having a diverse organization and be able to drive that shift. Right? So I'm just giving you a tangible, concrete example on the ground for us. So a big part of diversity that we are driving is really being able to diversify our competency mix to what will help us win in the future. And therefore, the backgrounds of people that we're looking for, and we're looking at different talent pools from what has helped us win in the past and so on. Right? So bringing me in from the outside, for example, has been part of that drive and so on. The second element, which is more along the line of doing good, as Pratyush very appropriately put it, I think for us is we've chosen to focus on gender diversity because that's an area we haven't done well in. I'm personally a believer that there's a lot more we need to do. There are some great examples within India, ICICI and several others who've done an extraordinary job. we need to do a lot more. We are trying very hard. I struggle, and we struggle with B2B businesses, and how do we make it happen. We do well in, for example, in our R&D mix of leaders that we are able to build on gender diversity. We're able to do that well in functions like finance and so on. But at the B2B kind of sales end, customer service end, and so on, manufacturing end, we struggle, right? So we're not trying to do it for doing its sake, but really, we have to make a strategic choice on our priorities. And we said we're going to focus on those two, which is really how do we build out the competencies for the future. And we've taken up gender diversity as a call to action internally, that a lot more needs to be done.
Okay. I'm glad you made that distinction about your company itself being a company in transformation and the kind of diversity that you therefore need in skills.